you think when it happens, it's going to be easier the next time, and it just never really is. You might start to handle it in a more elegant way, but it always impacts you.
Well, first and foremost, man, I really loved The Long Walk. It is a great film, and also just it is super intense, which I always love.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really glad people are connecting with it.
The first thing that I wanted to ask about it was, the story being told is generally restricted to just this walk itself on this road. So then how did you work to kind of world build while being restrained to that one road and what they may pass on the way?
I mean, it's a good question for Francis Lawrence as the director, but as the writer and working with him, I would say that, our priorities were not, we wanted to make sure our priorities were the characters, and those relationships and revealing hints of what was going on outside of the road, but not worrying too much about making that the priority, making that the main focus, and we thought that would just distract. So, Francis made a bold choice, which was let's put them in this, let's keep them in this, except for, these very few flashbacks. And I think that's where the movie, that's one of the things that definitely one of the number of things that definitely separates this film from his style in, say, The Hunger Games. Just much more intimate and kind of claustrophobic.
And speaking of the characters themselves, obviously, given the concept, nearly all of them are going to be biting the dust by the end of the film. But just with these characters, how did you work to make sure that no matter when that happened, that each and every one of those deaths were impactful in their own ways, in varying ways throughout this runtime?
Uh, you know, Almost everything you see in the movie, every death you see in the movie, was lifted right from the book. And I think that as I was reading the book, I kind of marveled at that. I mean, every time there's a death, it's impactful and it doesn't lose that. And I think that if we were to sanitize it or shy away from it, I think it would be kind of obscene. And that's why I wanted to write it for Francis, because Francis wanted to direct a movie that went all the way, and I know that's what Stephen King wanted him to do, and I was really interested in writing that. So, I think if you there's I think one of the themes and the observations for me is that, like, it never really gets easy. When we lose people, um, even though now I've had friends and family members who have died, and I've even been with somebody as they were dying. You think when it happens, it's going to be easier the next time, and it just never really is. You might start to handle it in a more elegant way, but it always impacts you, and I think that's what we're trying to do in this movie. Show that there's it's never any less impactful to lose somebody.
I squeeze in a really quick, unrelated question for you here. I know you've heard this a lot, but you are obviously rumored for a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. But I'm not going to ask the same question everyone asks, so I'm going to take a hypothetical angle here. Hypothetically, if that were true, and you're responsible for bringing Leatherface to screen for another installment, what would you personally be most excited for to bring with that character to screen and express in a new entry? What would you want to do? Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, I think the first film's perfect. So, and I'll tell you what, I think the second film is perfect in its own way. I love the first two Texas Chainsaw Massacres, and I think, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
All right, so looking at those two as something you would love to just see more of. That's exciting though, because I do love those are my two of the favorite series as well. Now
I'm
coming
not
back.
in remaking perfect films, I've said this a lot, and so remaking movies is something I'm kind of allergic to, especially good movies. So it's just that idea is not specifically interesting to me. So I don't think you'll ever see a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, a remake, or even a sequel that was made by me. It seems very unlikely. But I love those. That first movie is I think this in the conversation for the scariest movie ever made. It's certainly in the top three. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's also so well composed. Toby Hooper, like people forget how well composed that movie is. The shots, the view. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about it, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Hello, my name is Russ Milheim. I am from The Direct. Thank you so much for talking to me today about The Long Walk.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I really, really, really loved it. I thought it was so well done, so harrowing. It really leaves a lot to think about once the movie's all said and done, even during the movie, obviously, as well. So,
Yeah, thank you. I'm very proud of this movie, and I thought Francis and JT did an amazing work on it.
yeah. No, they definitely did. So I think it's going to cause a lot of buzz. A lot of people are going to be talking about it. My first question that I wanted to ask about though is just it's an interesting world that the film exists in. Can you talk about how, this project wanted to kind of subtly hint at and tease the wider world in that universe while also just making sure the narrative remained contained and it never took away focus from the intense and important character work, going
Yeah,
forward?
JT initially just wanted to focus on the boys and try to keep it as tight as possible. And we felt like if you started to see the outside world and everything, it would gotten a little bit more sprawling than we needed it to be because we just wanted to like the audience to focus on the characters themselves and the boys and their relationships, which is the most important part of this. And so knowing what the world is, we could hint at it and people could just imagine, but they know what the boys are dealing with, and that's what was important.
As the premise promises, there are a lot of deaths in this film, and they're fairly consistent throughout the runtime. How did you work to make sure that none of those moments ever felt repetitive, and each death kind of still packed an emotional punch, no matter who it was, how long you knew them, or how it happened?
Well, I think JT's job was made easier by Stephen King's amazing book. So it was something where it was the hardest part for him was just to condense it and to combine characters that made sense and just the situations like the major beats were all taken directly from the book, except for I don't even want to talk about it like right now, but you'll like
Yeah.
the changes that were made. Some change there were some big ones, but I'm thinking that the audience would understand why we had to do those changes.
You do mention, making changes to the source material. And talking about the kind of the spoiler-free parts of it, when adapting that source material, what was that thought process in like, okay, we do want to change this or we want to adjust this for this medium or our version of the story and like balancing how much you were changing from the original source material.
I think that most of the changes were the combining of characters and reducing the amount of participants from 100 to 50. And it was just so much to work with, and it was just a matter of willing it down. So I believe JT said his first draft of the script was 180 pages, which ended up being 95 pages. So it's like taking it and just condensing, and just working with Francis and like what was important to keep and to keep the balance in the movie, so it felt like it was constantly building.
Well, the movie was also filmed in sequential order, which is a rarity when it comes to like movies and television. How do you feel that that enhanced the final product?
Well, first of all, it's like you got to see the character, I mean, the actors actually get more and more tired as the movie progressed, which is actually the case because they were walking 15 miles a day as they're shooting it over and over again. And so that was really important, as well as the camaraderie that was built. Because at first, like just like in The Long Walk, they didn't know each other. And as they get to know each other, and as the actors started to gel with each other, when they started to get picked off, whenever their character left, they left the movie and like they weren't going to be able to hang out anymore. So it was sort of like the sadness of losing an actor friend that you're working with as well as the character. So it actually enhanced the entire process.
Well, what are some of the specific challenges that presented themselves when it came to making this in sequential order that like, might not usually be a challenge due to, things usually being out of order, but now having to do it sequentially. What were some of those
Well,
hiccups or
actually,
surprises?
this movie was made to be made sequentially, just because it's like there's no other way of doing it because you're getting a smaller and smaller group as the movie progresses.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times when you don't shoot out of order, it's because you're shooting in similar locations with different actors and different situations of going back to that scene later in the movie, and which we didn't because we just had it progressing. There's no reason to go
I
back.
do want to squeeze in a quick off-topic question for you. I am like a huge Bioshock fan. And it's a film that you're attached to, and so I just have to ask, some fans are wondering, like, are we ever going to see it happen? Like, can fans hope that this film will materialize?
Well, The Long Walk became a reality because BioShock was delayed for a little bit, where we had to do some more script work. And so, as the script work is being done, we shot The Long Walk, and he was already committed to doing the next Hunger Games movie. And so, it's just waiting for him whenever the Hunger Games is completed, and the script is just being worked on right now.
I am so excited. Is there anything you could tease about that story and your approach to that movie?
Not really, just because Netflix just wants us to keep everything under wraps, but it's definitely going to be based on the first BioShock game, and it's yeah, I can't really tell you anything else about it.
You are also attached to a Sims movie.
Yes.
What is the update there, and what does a Sims movie even look like?
Well, I mean, it's one of these things where I can't talk about it because it's going to be unique, and it's just sort of like the people were wondering what could a Lego movie be until you saw it, and I'm producing it with Margot Robbie, and they're probably wondering what could a Barbie movie, and just like somewhere in between both the Lego movie and Barbie is where the Sims movie would be.